was, I mean, on the increase. Now, you see, people are talking about who to blame and who not to blame. And I say, well, we have a governor who is the chief security officer of the state. And then, unfortunately, in playing the politics, there were times he made some statements. In fact, I think that it's not even up to 2 weeks. You should have that video where he said that the youth shouldn't bother. When the time comes, he will lead them and direct them on what to do. And that's like, okay, if the assembly is threatening to impeach me, I mean, this is what it is. So the moment the assembly filed that notice of gross misconduct, the next day we began to hear of pipeline vandalization. And of course, like they normally say, when the witch cried in the night and the child dies in the morning, who is responsible for the death of the child? I'm not saying he may have sent people, but you know that the people we are talking about, these youth, these restive youth we are talking about, are people that are just waiting for something, a statement. It will trigger them to begin to act. Don't forget that even pipeline vandalization, there are those who are doing it for their bunkering business. So it's also an opportunity to catch into the moment and then see what they can get out of it. So as far as I'm concerned, the president, maybe he acted too hastily, but it was to save the situation.
Okay, let me quickly chip this in. State of emergency is not an end in itself. It's just a process.
At all.
Now, the first 6 months, after 6 months, for instance, if the president decides to return the governor and the House of Assembly, and this problem is not solved, we're back to square one.
That's right.
So what are those things you expect that this period should begin to take place? What kind of conversation should we begin to have?
As far as I'm concerned, there's nothing much anybody can do aside the fact that the two groups need to sit on the table. They need to come together. I've always said that, that reconciliation is the only way. All my media rounds, that's all I've always preached. Unfortunately, some of the people who are crying foul now, who are trying to blame the president, were the same people who asked Fubara not to stick to the peace pact after he had signed. The young man wanted to do that. But by the time he returned to Port Harcourt, they began to say, no, it's unconstitutional. We have the records, it's everywhere, YouTube, you'll see the statements. And then today they are blaming the president. So for me, it is a time, this 6 months is going to be a healing period. It's a time for real truth. And of course, truth will come with terms and conditions. You know what I mean in politics. You know, before they came together to give, you are going to run for this and that, there were terms and conditions, not what people, basically like what people think about sharing of money or not. No, we are going to do this, we are going to do this project, we are going to do that, you know. So this is a time for them to really find a way to seek how to come together. Now, let me tell you, let me shock you. The assembly, somebody said the governor is the worst hit. And I said, no. The state assembly, the lawmakers have not had their salaries for 1 year, 7 months. The governor refused to pay, no allocation to them. The council chairmen who were removed, their tenure expired before, 4 months to their tenure elapsed, their salaries were, their allocations were also seized. The state assembly was brought down. Over what? These are the issues. And we are saying, oh, we shouldn't, they should talk. They must sit down on the table and talk. And then whatever is supposed to get to anybody, the constituents where these people come from, they are also not missing. You are even talking about budget presentation. Who prepared the budget in the first place? You cannot prepare budget without the 27 constituencies, where these lawmakers come from, making inputs. They have to be part of that budget. So who made inputs on their behalf? So these are the issues. So if they are going to use these 6 months to find a way to reconcile and agree, and then, of course, tell themselves the truth, this is the area we have heard, I think we will make it. If they refuse to do so, well, another 6 months of the emergency rule will stay.
Well, criticisms have continued to trail President Tinubu's decision. You also highlighted that some people might view it as being too hasty, but it's needed. And some people say that he should have allowed the Supreme Court judgment take its course. Do you think that is an avenue the president should have also considered?
When they went to meet with the president, the PANDEF, the stakeholders and all that, you know, the last meeting they had, I think that's about a week ago or some days back, you know. The president was clear. Let the rule of law prevail. Please go back home, you elders. Go and help the governor to implement the Supreme Court judgment. That judgment was total, comprehensive. There was nothing in that. In fact, let me tell you the truth. There's nothing the Supreme Court said that was different from what the High Court had said on January 23rd, 2024, of which, if the governor had taken the position of the High Court, judgment of Justice Kayode Omotosho, wouldn't have been here by now. But I think because we like to play politics over and above even governance, so he was listening to some persons who had their own vested interest in the crisis. So he refused to, abide by that. So when the president said, go and help him, we thought that coming back home, at least we would have heard that there's a meeting for the governor, between the governor and the elders. Rather, what we heard is, I'm going to wait for the CTC of the Supreme Court judgment. You had your lawyers present in court. What was the CTC say different from what the lawyers heard the judges say? So I think it was just gimmicks, And of course, unfortunately, there's always a time when you come to your wit's end, So the Supreme Court made it clear there was no seriousness in implementing that judgment. Somebody said that he went to the assembly to present the budget. For crying out loud, everybody knows that's not the procedure. That's not protocol. You don't just appear before the assembly quarters and then say, nobody to open the gate for me. No, you don't do that. And then the next few minutes, we saw you in Bori commissioning projects, which means that particular day, what you had listed on your protocol list was to the commissioning of the district. So what you had at the assembly was just drama, content. And then look at where it has ended everybody. So there was, for me, he should have followed that Supreme Court judge. You don't defy court orders. He was persistently, consistently doing that from the High Court to the Appeal Court to the Supreme Court. Nobody does that.